Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far, and quite the revelations coming out the last 24 hours or so from Envoy discussing the possibility to OpTic during this past off-season, Kenny to OpTic being a realistic option, but also Scump wanting Clayster to potentially join that roster. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, hitting that like button is the best thing you can do to help this channel reach more people, and hit that subscribe button as well if you have not already. Really helps the channel grow. Gonna try and hit 75k if we can before the start of the season. We don't even know what that'll be. But let's give it a go. I'm sure we can get there. Firstly, there's some Havok. My team split up, so I'm a free agent for the first Challengers Cup. Kind of an interesting one, right? Because, of course, Havok, there was all this drama that went down a little bit ago when he was, okay, should he stay on Florida? They were kind of going to get rid of him, right? With Vivid there, or at least they were going to get rid of Yeez and keep Havok. And then, yeah, Havok decided, look, I want to compete in Challengers instead of playing on this side of things in the pro side and just being a substitute on that roster going into the year. Now, of course, like, Challengers is a bit of a minefield right now. A lot of players have gone over to the Halo side of things. But, yeah, Havok's still grinding it out. His team is split up though. All sorts of chaos going on in Challengers that is generally very hard to keep up with. This I wanted to mention from Crone, who of course runs the Intel Call of Duty account on Twitter. Now, he, I believe, is contracted to, or at least was contracted to Esports to write articles with them, right, during the whole off-season and the Rostermania period that we saw. Of course, not too much of that going on right now. And he says, look, it's official. Not sure what this refers to, whether he signed somewhere else as kind of, you know, signed an even a greater contract in terms of how to do roster moves and stuff, or whatever articles happen throughout the entire season. Thought this was cool regardless to see Crone getting the bag, because definitely makes it more likely that he's going to stay around the Call of Duty scene, because he's talked about it, right, because Twitter's difficult to monetize in this type of stuff. It's always an interesting one. This also I thought was interesting here from Jeff Keighley. Beyond its nominations, I can confirm that Activision Blizzard will not be a part of this year's Game Awards. So every year they do these Game Awards things, they talk about, you know, Vanguard and all these type of games that potentially might get an award for some reason, and well anyway, Blizzard aren't going to be involved, pretty much due to all the drama around Activision right now, and understandably so. So yeah, just another L in the books really that we've seen these last several days on the whole, well, the whole side of their story. But well, let's talk about this on Octane then. Legendary note with legendary people. They are, I'm pretty sure, have like a Christmas party or whatever with all the 100 Thieves guys. And of course, as you can see right here, all the 100 Thieves guys in the room, they're out there in LA now. So if you guys hadn't heard about this already, the entire roster is out there in Los Angeles, and they're going to be playing it from the compound for this upcoming season. Lots of talk about this really, whether that's a good idea, whether it is not. Of course, in theory, you can bring other teams out to that facility, film some content, have some good practice in that kind of LAN environment there. But of course, a lot of players talked during the online era that was the Modern Warfare season that being out on the West Coast was an absolute disaster to actually play due to the server locations. Apparently, the CDL have stepped up their servers to some degree, so if there is still online competition this year, which I really wouldn't doubt at this point, and then have the majors on LAN, really a similar story to last year, which not exactly sure I'm too happy about, but we'll see how it goes. Don't know what the announcement's going to be, I mean, or even when it's coming, to be honest. But, you know, regardless, hopefully the servers out there should be a little bit better now, and they can, well, live in LA with the rest of the guys and do content out there with the entire 100 Thieves organization, which of course does make a fair bit of sense. But yeah, these guys getting rid of, I mean, Octane just looks so goofy on some of these pictures, it's kind of funny. But anyway, this of course is the starting roster: Kenny, Octane, Drazah, and Envoy. But this certainly may not have been the case, right? There was a lot of talk about exactly how this roster was forming, where Envoy was going to go, because of course Envoy comes of OpTic, a big surprise really, at least to him initially, because he kind of thought that during the season there was maybe a 5% chance he was gone, but 95% chance he'd be there for next year. And then with the merger going down as it does, obviously he finds himself out of a position. He was looking at some options. He goes on to say right here that he was looking at the subliners, he was looking at Los Angeles Guerrillas, and he was also looking at the possibility of Los Angeles Thieves. But other options were certainly on the cards. He really wanted to team with Kenny. He reached out to Kenny and said, look, maybe we can make something happen here. And that wasn't necessarily Kenny still being the franchise player, I guess, for LA Thieves, and Envoy joining. That could have been the other way around. And Nadeshot goes on to say that Kenny was basically telling Nadeshot, like, look, if there's one other team I'm going to leave for, it might well be OpTic. And yeah, Nadeshot's like, look, that's not what I want to hear. I like, you know, you're going to stay here. We're paying you a lot of money. And he says, okay, maybe he wouldn't really be the best fit over there as well. But yeah, there was a serious possibility, at least it was discussed, that Kenny to OpTic could have been on the table. At the same time then, of course, well, Scump's question mark, that's generally always the big one, right? What does Scump want to do with the roster? And the OpTic team, of course, last year, Envoy talks about that probably during the middle of the year, when it was not yet known that there was going to be this crazy collaboration between, you know, Hex and OpTic and all this type of stuff going down. Like before that, it was actually known that Scump actually potentially wanted Clayster to come into their team. It could have been Scump, Envoy, Clayster +1, whether that's Dashy or whoever that might have been. That could have been a possibility. Maybe trying to upgrade Formal to Clayster and see what that could have potentially done for their roster.
And then it came to a point where it was between you guys, New York, and LAG. And like I've been running a team with Kenny for like the last year now. Or I thought about bringing Ken to OpTic, like if we were going to find someone. So it was like a good start, and I teamed with him in the past.
Wow. You know what? I completely forgot about that aspect of this offseason. I can comfortably tell everybody at home now, I think you'll actually be very excited to hear this. I was bricks for like a good 24 hours because I had heard I was asking Scump what they were doing this offseason. Because it's not like I'm actually going out and signing players. That's Eric Schaub, Mud Dog. You guys know him, or you should at least. And I was trying to get intel from Seth just so that I personally could know what was possible for our roster.
Yeah.
And Scump wouldn't tell me. I'm like on FaceTime with him. I'm like, motherfucker, I tell you everything.
Yeah.
We got no secrets. He's like, Hector will literally kill me.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know. Hector didn't tell me either about what was happening. And so I was trying to get this whole picture painted right in front of me.
Yeah, you're trying to put the pieces together.
Exactly. And I don't know how I heard about Kenny potentially playing for OpTic, but I found out about that. I texted Kenny right away, and I'm like, yo, man, like you're a franchise player.
Yeah.
We just got off with your agents. We're paying you really well this year.
You're like, no way you're leaving me. No way.
Well, you know what he says to me?
What?
I'll pull it up because it's probably the last text that we had because we only usually talk in group chats. He said the only other team that I would leave for would be OpTic. And I'm like, wait.
This is a possibility now.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm gonna lose my boy.
Hold up, that's what I'm worried about.
I said, he left you on red. And then he's like, yo, how about this? He texted me like 2 hours after we had chatted. Get Seth from OpTic. He was hinting at us playing together a little bit before, but I doubt he'd leave. You can convince him. And I'm like, well,
Hold up now. We ain't trying to trade the compound for one player because that's what it would have been.
and then I say, well, he'd never leave Hector and OpTic. Probably wants you to join OpTic, LMAO. Did you think of that? I'll text him, though. I'm FaceTiming him. He said, it's probably the only other team I'd join, but I just want to build my own team with you guys, honestly. I don't think I'd fit in over there. Back in Black Ops 4, I was like, yo, maybe we should even think about picking up Clay.
Yeah.
Because Clay at the time was one of the most popular players, and he does a lot of dumb shit, but
he brings a lot to a team. Even when me and Seth were talking about like if we team together next year, he wanted a team with Clay just because he brings that energy and like, you know, it feels like you're never going to lose because the guy's always screaming.
Exactly.
You know, he's like hyping you up.
There's a lot of questions about this, to be honest, right? Like, Kenny to OpTic would have been kind of a weird one. I guess at the same time, he was on OpTic during the Modern Warfare season on OpTic Gaming Los Angeles. Not sure that necessarily counts to the same degree, but definitely still something. The Clayster to OpTic one would have been really interesting, though, because Clayster, he's been on so many teams throughout his career, it's kind of absurd. Like, he was, of course, on OpTic with Scump back in the day, and during the Ghost days, they won the X Games. You guys might well remember that team. It was a pretty legendary roster of Scump, Najod, Proofy, and Clayster, and then yeah, I mean that was a cracking team back in the good old days. But yeah, Clayster of course has been on so many teams since then, won a fair few world championships since then as well. But it's certainly like his energy, what he brings to a team, is definitely very well considered within the professional scene. And Scump seems to agree with that as well. Maybe he thought the formal and the rest of the guys, the vibes on the team weren't quite where they needed to be. And of course, Clayster had a cracking year in Modern Warfare, and also had a great year towards the start of Cold War. I can certainly understand if I'm interpreting what Envoy is saying here correctly, that kind of like during the middle of the Cold War season sometime, when they're considering, okay, maybe things aren't going great at stage 3, stage 4, something like that, and we've kind of been falling short. Like, could there be a possibility we upgrade next year, does formal step away, or whatever the case was? Because I guess he was the most underperforming player of that team if you look at it from the kind of statistical perspective. That Clayster comes in because he was really good at the first half of Cold War for sure. He was one of the very top players before New York obviously didn't have the greatest time right towards the end of the year. But yeah, Clay to OpTic once again could have been a serious option. And also the Kenny thing is kind of crazy also. Speaking of Clayster, I thought this was kind of interesting. You pointed out last night. Why do I love this, he says. So, someone makes a comment here on the Reddit. I'll bring it up for you guys to read. The only way this works, so there's some discussion about the possibility of what they could do with like a 12th spot in the league, as to whether actually getting some amateur players like into the league itself. So what they say is, like, what is it if there's a possibility that all the CDL franchise owners make a pact and wrote into all the player contracts, or if it made a CDL rule, that if any team places 12th in the league, the entire roster has to be dropped from that team, and the best challengers team from the year will replace that roster. Relegation doesn't work on a franchise level while the rosters are static, but rosters are kind of unique and flexible. So yeah, kind of interesting about it. I think this is never going to happen in reality, but Clay goes up, why do I love this, right? Let's actually make this happen. So then there's some discussion about, how do you actually make this work? Of course, look, from the pro side, it kind of, at least would work, right? You could say to Paris or whoever comes last in the league, or just say to every single team, if you place last, your entire, we're dropping the entire roster. That's a rule that is basically forced into the roster, and therefore, like, there's a lot of incentive there not to place last in the league, right? Of course, one team, I suppose, will manage it. But of course, the question is, how do you guarantee that a team that comes in from the amateur side actually, gets officially picked up by the proper roster, right? As JP says, he's talking about the case for the amateur team that gets promoted, though. Like, how is it possible to actually guarantee that they get picked up to this team? It's a difficult one for sure. And also, how do you confirm exactly what is the best team in Challengers? Is it just the team that wins the Challengers Championship? But, maybe that's not even done on land with all the regions, right? Because the best Challenger team might be from Europe, it might be from Australia, not necessarily North America. Therefore, like, how does that thing work, right? If there is a Challengers Champs LAN like there was back in Black Ops 4, then that would be okay. But it's still not exactly an ideal scenario. I'm not really sure. Thought this is kind of a funny idea, though, that, all the teams could come together and say, look, if our team places last, we're going to drop the entire roster and pick someone else up for next year. That might be a way to have a bit of a turnover and get some of these amateur teams into the league and see how things go, because it's tough for a full rosters to break in right now for sure until expansion comes through, or until potentially a 12th team comes through and maybe picks up Method's team from Challengers or something like that, which could be a feasible option at the present time. Just to finish off with this then as well from the Call of Duty League, 3 of the greatest Call of Duty dynasties, but one has to go. Which one is getting erased from history? Now, to me, there's no question mark here, right? Really, is there? Like, to be honest, because I think like the latter two here, Complexity and OpTic, they are like undisputed dynasties, right? If there's 2 dynasties in Call of Duty history, it's got to be Complexity and OpTic. Now, even some would say for Eco Impact back in the Call of Duty Black Ops 2 days, but realistically, they only dominated for a few months. So it wasn't quite the same story as what FaZe achieved last year. But FaZe, I think for a lot of people are still on the cusp. Like, are they a dynasty? I think a lot of people might say they have to really continue it into this year with this roster of 4 into, to actually get considered to that kind of status among these other teams. So I think for now, it's kind of a no-brainer that FaZe has to go from the best dynasties of all time list. But if FaZe continue what they did last year for another year, then we're talking a serious discussion. Or even if they aren't quite as dominant, but they win a few events still, like, there's still that dynasty talk that is ongoing there. But then again, you could talk about eras and difficulty of competition, and there's all these questions that go on. But Method has something of a different opinion here. Why is this team not pictured right? The World War II OpTic team, which wasn't necessarily spectacular, but very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, hitting that like button tells the YouTube gods this is a good video, and I was like, you should see it as well. And I've grown the competitive Call of Duty community. Thank you for watching as always. Take care, and I will see you next time.